Okay, hey now everyone, welcome back, brand new Take Aim podcast, and super pumped to get this episode out, and super pumped to have my buddy Jace Bauserman back with us, and always excited to talk with Jace. You know, he lives out in Colorado, and, you know, love to talk to the guys I admire that are such good bow hunters, and just have the chance to experience hunting such and many different animals. And Jace recently drew pretty much a tag of a lifetime, a Rocky Mountain Bighorn sheep tag, and Jace fulfilled just basically a lifelong dream for many bow hunters, smashed a big, giant old ram, and super excited to have him on, share this story. And it's an awesome story, a beautiful bow hunt, and I hope you guys enjoy. And as always, guys, if you haven't had the chance to upgrade to Huntstand Pro, use the code TakeAim10. But I talk about some of the features. One feature I haven't mentioned is trail cam management with AI species recognition. So, I mean, that's unreal. And like I said, guys, I use this app all the time. It's always improving, and there's new and new features all the time added to this app, and new features that I'm learning about all the time to add into how I use things, set up properties, and how I'm hunting. So, again, check out with Take Aim 10. We'll see you guys again next week. Remember, deer season never ends. All right, guys, we are live, brand new Take Aim podcast, and super pumped to get this show out, and excited to have my buddy back with us, Jace Bauserman from Bowhunting World Magazine. But what's happening, Jace?
Oh, man, just another day in paradise here in southeast Colorado, getting to talk to you. So the day's gotten better, progressively better.
Exactly. Well, cool, man. I'm super excited to get you back on. I know it's been a minute, but I feel like, Jace, like recently, which is super cool because you're just one of my favorite guys in the industry, but I'm seeing you everywhere, man. You're on Huntstand, YouTube, the Outdoor Channel, you name it, there's Jace Bauserman. So how busy are you?
Busy. It's been such a blessing, though. I mean, this is what I wanted to do for the longest time, and you know, after I left Bowhunting World and just decided to go out on my own and start a full-time freelance job and some different consulting stuff with some manufacturers and just a gamut of different things. It's really taken off. So I'm really happy about that. It's given me the flexibility I need to chase my kids' crazy life and sports schedule around, and my wife and her work and all the things that, you know, a family of 5 has with kids in high school and elementary and everything else. So no, I'm as busy as I've ever been in my life. But I won't complain 1 second about it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that sounds great. You know what's funny, Jace, is I know you're busy when you're, you know, like always writing articles and trying to get the Bowhunter World Magazine ready every month. And, you know, as much content I've seen out of you recently, I was like, oh my gosh, he's got to be like just, you know, balls ablazing, so to speak, lately. And, you know. Yep, absolutely. You just recently were on an awesome sheep hunt, and I definitely want to dive into that and talk about that and just the experience overall. And I know for us Midwest guys that love bow hunting, you know, we're drawn to a lot of those stories. And I remember being a kid just, you know, always reading Bowhunter magazine and all those wild stories of what I thought were exotic places, you know what I mean? And that's what I thought when I saw your sheep, man. I was like, look at Jace, bow hunting, you know, just, I don't know, like I could score a whitetail, Jace, but I'm sure that's an easy Pope and Young sheep.
Yeah, he's easy Pope and Young. You know, he's bumping right up there around Boone and Crockett. And he's the ram of a lifetime. You know, any ram, any mature ram is a ram of a lifetime. When you get to watch these creatures and just how special they are, and the country that they call home, and how they interact with each other, and their ruts. I mean, there's just so much. Just like any animal, right? There's just so much to them that makes them great. And for me, this was kind of the pinnacle for me as a bow hunter. It was kind of the top of the heap tag. You know, just drawing the tag is it's such a random chance anymore with the point creep and the years that you apply, and you hope one day your name gets to get called and you get to go up and hunt wild sheep. Just getting to say that you got to go hunt wild sheep is kind of a win in itself. And then to put in the work that we all put in, and then to end it the way that we did, I just feel super, super blessed and super fortunate to have got the chance to hunt these animals.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely want to talk about that. But, again, I want to just first and foremost say congrats, man, because I know for sure, Jace, that's a ram of a lifetime. So congrats to you, bud. It's insane. But I definitely want to talk about just that process. Like, tell us about the tags and how long you've been doing this and how that point system works, because I know it's not like what you would call fluke, like, oh, hey, you hit the lotto. That barely happens to guys. So I'm sure you've been working at that tag system for a long time.
Yeah, so in Colorado, the way that it works is for sheep, for Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, mountain goat, and moose, we have what's called weighted points. And basically the way it works is your first 3 years you put in, you have no chance of drawing that tag. You have to accumulate your 3 weighted points. Once you have your 3 weighted points, technically you are in the draw the next year. Now, the more points you have, obviously, the better chances that you're going to, you're going to pull a tag. But there have been guys that have pulled bighorn tags with like 3. When I say 3 and 5, let's say, that's 8 points because the 3 weighted and then your 5 regular. So, sometimes you just get lucky, right? Sometimes, but I know guys that. I knew a guy on this hunt that waited, he had waited 30 years to draw a sheep tag.
Wow.
So, and guys drew before him that had, I'm not exactly sure how the entire system breaks down and works, but, I've been putting in for 19 years total. I had 3 and 16. So I had my 3 weighted and my 16 that I'd been putting in for, and you get a little jaded. You get a little jaded over time because you get your email every year, when the draw results come out, and you get so used to clicking on it and reading that, hey, thanks for applying in the annual da-da-da-da draw. However, this year, you're unsuccessful and you've gained another preference point. And I was sitting in my office. I knew the results were coming out that day. And my mountain goat application came back first, and I clicked on it, and that's exactly what it was. Hey, thanks for putting in for the annual Colorado da-da-da-da-da. However, you were unsuccessful. And seconds after that, the application for my sheep dinged in my inbox, and I was like, oh, here we go. Another year and I clicked on it, and confetti just exploded on the screen. And I was like, that's not, wait? And then I just started reading, and I had to literally read the letter from 3 times top to bottom
to make sure
before I could accept. Yeah, to accept that I was going to be hunting Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, and that I double checked. Okay, I didn't screw up and put in the wrong unit, right? It's got to be this unit. It's got to be this unit. And so once I got it all, figured out, I just let out a squeal in my office. I was so excited, and my wife comes running and she's like, everything okay? And I was like, I just drew my Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep tag. And she's like, well, I guess August is out for anything, huh? And I was like, yep. And she was excited. And then, I'd called all my really, closest friends that I have, and some guys that I knew were going to be on this sheep hunt with me, and celebrated the fact that you drew a tag, because you draw the tag, and then really the hunt starts that day, in my opinion, if you take it super serious, which you should on it, on any tag, but you should so we started that day. I feel like I started hunting my ram the day the draw results came out.
Gotcha. So, Jace, I know you said unit or, zone. So you had picked that previously, and how did you go about picking that? Like you had experience from other friends, or just previously scouting with other people, or how'd that go?
Well, so my good friend, one of my best friends, his name's Grafton Singer. He owns an auto repair shop in Gunnison, Colorado. He's a big-time hunter. He's been all over. He's a very, very skilled outdoorsman. And when we were younger, and he lived over there, and he was putting in for sheep, but he's a rifle. He wanted to rifle hunt. He's a rifle guy. And he's like, I'm putting in for this unit. He's like, but look, man, you need to start putting in for this unit. He's like, you need to start putting in for it. It's very conducive to stalking. He's like, just trust me on this. Just trust me on this. And, you know, over those years, I'd been up there several times just to see him or hang out with him, or we'd go look, you know, whatever. And the unit just really appealed to me. So I just always kept putting in for that particular unit. And, and that's kind of how it came to be was Grafton told me, like, hey, this is the unit that you're going to kill a sheep in with your bow. And this is, you know, so keep putting in for it. This is the unit we need to keep putting in for. And so that's what I did. And you know, then the tag got drawn.
So when you got that email, Jace, what time of year was that? When you actually knew?
It was in May, I believe. Yeah, it was in May. Yep, that was in May. Yeah, crazy.
So from there, how did you go about getting to this pattern? Because I assume your season started around August 1st or the last day in July.
It did start. It did start August 1st. Yep, it was August 1st through August 31st. So from that point on, I guess where we really started is, you know, I didn't have to go through all the, you know, the maps and that sort of stuff so much because.
All right, guys, we're back. We had one little issue there, but Jace, as you were saying, you basically went to the maps and you guys started scouting, and I think I lost you. So I think that's part of what I heard.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. But yes, so, you know, we did go to the maps and things like that, but there wasn't a whole lot of e-scouting and things like that involved because my buddies up there had been in the unit so many times. And so basically what it started down to was, you know, I wanted to get up there and start finding sheep. Because these sheep, you know, you're hunting them during the summer, so you're hunting bachelor herds of sheep. They're not with the ewes and lambs at all. A lot of times they'll be within eyesight of them where they can actually see them, but they're not with them. And sometimes they're not even close to ewes and rams. So it's just kind of random. But I wanted to get up there, get in that area, and start putting glass on sheep and start, you know, learning specific access roads. If we see sheep here, can we actually can we drive to a certain location and then make the big trek, or, you know, all the different parts that go along with that. So, you know, I started going up there in late June. You know, most of May was spent just doing a lot of keeping up with my physical training, which I always do, you know, and just making sure everything with my bow was exactly dialed the way I wanted, you know, checking third axis. You know, just making sure things were exactly right. And then starting in late June, I made my first scouting trip up there. Spent a lot of time from different glassing locations, actually putting eyes on sheep, which is really a really fun thing to do. They're a blast to watch. They remind me, a bachelor herd of rams reminds me of a bunch of teenage boys in a football locker room. I mean, it just. They can't stop jacking around with each other. I mean, it's not the rut, but they'll straight up bang heads. You know, rams will be standing up facing away, and another ram will just come up and just hit him square in the butt. You know, and they'll even walk up behind them and just lift their front leg and kick them square in the nuts. I mean, the things that you watch these sheep do is it's really phenomenal.
That is crazy. That is really funny. So glassing-wise, Jace, give us a couple tips on kind of what you looked for. And I don't know, like, is there a certain elevation you would start at? Like, how did you go about, like, you know what, I'm going to glass in this area? Or, you know, is it as simple as, like, well, we know they like to feed in a certain area?
Yeah, well, basically these sheep in this particular area, They live in a relatively concentrated area, and when I say concentrated, I'm not we're not talking acres, we're talking miles. But you're in country where you can see from an elevated vantage point. You can see a lot of canyon cuts, you can see a lot of open faces, you can see a lot of sage flats. And, you know, these sheep are in a lower type country. These sheep are not up above, 14,000 feet. You know, they're somewhere around that 9 to 10.5 mark. And so, but the way that terrain lays is it is very open. And so basically we were just putting ourselves in positions where we could see lots of country. And then, you know, my good buddy that was on that hunt with me, Connor Clark, he actually had this tag last year. But he had the rut season. He had the late season. Well, I guess it's kind of pre-rut, but in October. And, you know, Connor was just invaluable as far as, you know, being able to say, hey, like, man, I saw a lot of sheep congregated here pretty regularly. These are types of areas they like. This is, you know, I didn't see them over here a lot. And so we just kind of started the process of elimination. And when you're looking for sheep, you know, the biggest thing I guess you can say is you cannot just scan. When you're looking for sheep, you cannot just scan. You have to systematically grid and start picking things apart, and don't look for an animal. You know, the biggest mistake I think people make when they're glassing for anything is they're looking for an animal. And that sounds stupid because, yes, you are looking for an animal, but what you're really looking for is finite pieces. Because if you're finding finite things where you're like, is that log, you know, let's say you're glassing for mule deer, right? Is that log, is that a tree branch laying behind that log that's dead that looks like an antler? Or is that when you start picking up things like that, when you start picking up little pieces of something reflecting or a color or something like that, really finite details, that's when you start finding animals. And these rams, it's amazing. Their horns glow. I swear they glow. When the sun hits them, they glow. It's like the heavens open and it's like, you know, I mean, it's just this glowing effect. So, you know, we were finding sheep. We find sheep every day, basically. Every day we scouted, we were on sheep. We were on some band of rams. And, you know, early on like that in the early summer, the big issue was most of these rams, you know, my son and I glassed up a herd of 38 rams one day. And that's a lot of eyeballs. You know, so when you're talking about getting bow hunting close to 38 eyeballs, and these sheep are very wary. They are on point with all systems go. Their eyes are incredible. They smell incredible. They hear very, very well. And so, you know, that was something we knew was going to be a challenge from the get-go, was we were going to be probably hunting larger bands of rams. But, you know, we were just, at that point, you're just happy to be on sheep. You're happy to be finding sheep and know you're going to have sheep to hunt. Because, you know, we all truly believe that, you know, if we can put in our time, we're on sheep, you know, eventually the stars are going to align. We're going to be in a spot and we're going to get the job done. So, you know, it was just a lot of scouting. I spent a lot of time going back and forth between my home and that unit, you know, just repetitively watching sheep and seeing if there were any patterns that were developing. And pretty soon you, you found areas where concentrated areas to go look right off the bat. It's like, I'm going to check these 3 drainages first, and if I don't find them, okay, I'll branch out from there. And you just, you know, the more you're out there, just like any other hunt, the more you learn, the more prepared you are. And I felt like we were really prepared going into opening day.
Yeah, I'm glad you just hit on that, Jace, because I was going to actually ask that. It seems to me, you know, things I've read before in stories and magazines, that sheep seem to be so very nomadic, like, you know, and I was wondering if you had figured out like a little bit of certain patterns and what they like to do, and they may show up here or there, but that's interesting here that there's a certain couple spots that they will visit like that.
There was on this hunt, you know, there definitely was, but these sheep, like I said, they are nomadic. I mean, one day, you know, we'd glass them up, you know, in the morning and come back in an evening, and they'd be 4 miles from there. I mean, during the heat of the day, you know, they for no rhyme nor reason, they just decided, hey, we're going to go up and we're going to go back over here. Sometimes they'd cross the entire canyon and end up on the full other side of their home range in there, and it was just, so that was always a challenge, you know, just making sure. But that's the importance of a team, you know. I mean, throughout any article I write about this or any interview I give or podcast I do, you're going to hear me say the word we a lot, because, you know, a group of us killed this sheep. This ram belongs to so many of us. I was the one lucky enough to have the tag in my pocket and be toting the bow, but it was a 100% team effort from the scouting to the finish, you know, of actually getting that sheep off the hill.
Yeah, for sure. I know it seems to be maybe a little more, of a Western thing, Jace, than it is for whitetails, I guess, that you see guys that all get together and, you know, when you draw yours, I'm helping, and then when I draw mine, you guys are helping, and that seems to be that team effort you're talking about.
It's definitely a team effort because it's, like I said, it's kind of the top of the heap tag to draw. And, you know, you got guys that just want to be a part of it. You've got guys that, like me, I just want to go on another sheep hunt right now. You know, I'm sitting here thinking about antelope, and it's hard because I'm like, man, somebody else have a sheep tag? And actually, I'm going to run back up there because there's two other gentlemen that are hunting that unit. Great guys. Met them both. Super wonderful bow hunters, respectful, quality public land hunters. And they're both still out there grinding away. So the one guy, for sure, I'm going to get back up there before season's closed. If he doesn't tag out here in the next few days, I'm going to try to get back over there and sheep hunt with him and put glass and be a part of that for a little while because it is a special thing, you know. And when my buddies draw that haven't drawn, I'll be there. I'll give up a hunt to go on their hunt because, you know, they know what it meant to me, and I know what it means to them, and so it's definitely a special thing, and I think for this hunt, definitely more than harvesting that ram was just having the people I was able to have on that hunt. You know, my dad, who's not a hunter at all, joined us for 4 days of the hunt. He joined 2 days scouting, and he actually left the day before I killed my ram. But, you know, just being able to have him up there and have that mental and emotional support, because it's a grind and it's a pressure tag. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. I felt an overwhelming amount of pressure at times to compartmentalize and keep things together and you know, really continue to focus because there were blown stalks. You know, it's not like I killed the first sheep I went after. I passed a sheep that I laid there at night for an hour wondering why I passed that sheep because he was a mature ram, and that was the goal. But I'd seen some of these other sheep, and I was like, if we keep hunting, we got 31 days, really. My wife was a saint. And so, you know, there's just a lot that goes into it. And so it was wonderful to have the group that I did.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's really nice. And, you know, one thing we didn't even touch on, Jace, is you actually have to locate what the state deems a legal ram, and that's not always easy.
Correct. It's not always easy. And it, you know, it's got to be a half curl or better. And a lot of people, you know, don't understand what a half curl is when they're thinking sheep. They're thinking that's a half a curl coming up under the jawline type of deal. Well, that's usually, you know, your mature type rams. A half curl is not a very big ram. I mean, a half curl is not a very big ram. So your sheep guys will call them banana heads because that's what it looks like. It's like they've got some little bananas that come out, and there was a lot of rams in that unit too that were not legal rams, of course, but there is a lot of half curls, and there's a lot of those sheep that you would never want to put yourself in the position because they're right on that border. You know, and you have to take that sheep in. You know, once it's harvested, you have to take that sheep. You have to take the head in to the Colorado Division of Wildlife. They have to seal that sheep. They drill a small hole in the back of the horn and they plug it, and they take some samples off of it. So, you know, it's one of those things you have to be very careful about, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all of it is just so interesting. And you know, Jace, when you had preseason scouted, and now we'll kind of fast forward to like getting to that point where you guys you started your hunt now, and you said your dad was there and the team's there. You know, based on that scouting and you hunting, were you guys kind of into rams right away? Or I know, like you said, that pressure kind of starts to build, and I totally get that because, like you said, it's more or less a once in a lifetime tag. So, you know,
it is.
Yeah, for sure. And you, as the days go by, even though, you know, some of those days you're scouting and you're on them, it's still being successful, but you just really start to feel that stuff. So how long did you guys kind of take before you ended up getting like that first or second stalk on a good ram?
You know, so our first stalk actually came the very first morning about 9 o'clock. We had a buddy of mine, his name's Lane Ferris, and he the college kid up there, he plays football at Western, and he had taken some time. Football hadn't started yet early, and he'd have to go to weights in the afternoon. So a lot of times we had him in the mornings and weekends and stuff. And I was actually watching a band of sheep. The other hunter had gone in to make a stalk on these sheep, and the stalk didn't work out, and these sheep came really boiling across the canyon. Long story short, I tried to move around them. It didn't work out, and when I came back from that, trying to get on those sheep, my buddy Grafton, who lives there, he's like, dude, we got to go. We got a radio. Lane, one of our spotters, has located a ram in a good spot, so we need to go check it out. And so when we finally got down there, it's not like, jumping across the road and going, when we finally got over to where Lane was, he was posted up. He was on his spotter just like he should be. He had rams on the, on the hillside, bedded in the cliffs. And there was one really good-sized ram there, one that I would have been tickled to kill. He's probably a mid-60s type ram, mid-160s ram, very beautiful ram. And he was bedded perfectly. And Grafton and I made a really, really good stalk. I mean, we made a really good stalk, and we were 20 yards from that sheep, bedded, facing straight away from us, no real shot opportunity. But I was getting up and getting into position, and I was actually getting ready to clip onto my D-loop, and all of a sudden, it's just rocks are flying, and the sheep they're gone. And what had happened, we didn't know it at the time, but Lane was watching on the spotter when we got back down the hill. One of the smaller rams, one of the half curls, had actually stood up, and we couldn't see that ram from our position above him, but he could see us. And he just blew the whole thing apart. And just like that, you were 20 yards, you're seconds from getting a shot on opening morning and thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to come together at 20 yards to they're gone. They're just gone, and it's like, whew, wow, and that's kind of how it went for the first 2.5 days of the actual hunt was, because I had 4 really good stalks that I would consider good stalks, was in on big rams twice, passed one ram, but yeah, so the nice thing about it was we were always on sheep. I felt like we were always, in the hunt. It was like chasing tornadoes. We'd make a stalk, and then our spotter would pick up a different band, and they're like, "Hey, man, you got to come back over here." And so it was energetic. It was really kind of a fast-paced deal until that final stalk did come together, and it just happened to be on one of the biggest, if not the biggest, ram in that unit. So it was great.
Now, Jace, from beginning to end, how much down the road was it when you ended up getting the stalk on the ram you actually shot?
It was the evening of day 3.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was the afternoon of day 3. And so, but I want to stress, like, people will hear that and think, oh man, that's nothing. That's
that's
I
not
had
normal, right?
Days allotted for this hunt.
Yeah.
No, I had 31 days allotted for this hunt. Like I said, these other 2 gentlemen they're still out there getting after it. We were just really fortunate to catch 9 rams, which was a small group for this hunt. 9 rams had broken off. We caught them in a very cliffy, very approachable spot, and that was the main thing that I learned is you can't force it with these things. If you watch them long enough, you have to let them put themselves in harm's way, and then once they do, you have to be ready to go take advantage of that. And that's what had happened here. We glassed these rams. One of my best friends from here in La Junta, Jason Weaver, was also along on the hunt, and he actually was the one that found these sheep. And once we got down there, we're like, oh my gosh, these are our 3 shooters. These are our 3 top prospects, and they're all together here. And they bedded under a very gnarly, rocky outcropping. It was a huge, gnarly, rocky point. And the best approach would have been to come up at them. And I know that sounds weird, but how the country set, it would have been better to come up the backside of the spine ridge and actually try to loop over on them from that way, get above them from the bottom. But the wind was was not allowing that. So what I had to do was I made a 2-mile loop around them, got up on top, and then cut across basically a massive sage flat and got into the timber. And, you know, what I'd done is I'd taken my Huntstand app and I dropped a pin exactly where we thought where they were. We
Right.
knew the pin was on. And we double confirmed it, checked it. And then I also took some photos with my iPhone of one tree up there that I knew I could see that tree no matter what elevation change I was at. I knew I could find that tree.
Okay.
And I needed to get to that tree. And so using that app and then using my photographs, I was able to get to that tree. It took a while. It took about, it took a while. And when I got to that tree, I was 96 yards from probably about a 5/8 pearl ram, a nice ram, just didn't have a lot of mass. And this unit's known for its mass. He still had his lamb tips. He wasn't broomed back. And he definitely wasn't a ram I was going to shoot, but he was bedded on the biggest boulder on this mountainside. I mean, he was on top of it, just laying there, just looking beautiful. I could have watched him for, it was crazy. I could not see the other rams, but I knew I was close because they were all right there. And I had a feeling that they were below me and kind of tucked underneath me behind another rock outcropping that I couldn't see over. And so at that point I was stuck because any movement from there, that ram, he had me. So I just got myself in position and stayed patient and just decided that, hey, I got to let the chips go where they may here. And my hope was that ram, when he came off that rock, would want to work this rock face that led to kind of a grassy chute, and maybe they'd all go over there for the evening, and that would be where they would feed. And after about an hour and a half, that ram jumped off that rock, and as soon as he did, a couple of smaller, not legal rams got up around him, and they just kind of started to graze towards me. And as they were grazing towards me, I looked to my left, and the big rams were there. It was like where they were bedded, I couldn't see, and they just appeared, and they were working their way towards me. And I got the range, I got my sight dialed, and the shot was basically, it was a massive downhill angle. Line of sight was probably 80 yards. The shot ended up being 64 and a half. So it kind of gives you the idea of the downward angle. And the lead ram stopped, and that's the one I wanted. And I just kept pushing and pulling through the hinge. And by the grace of God, the arrow it was a perfect shot. It was, it went in high lung and dropped out low lung on the opposite side because of the angle. And he was dead in seconds. He went 40 yards and tipped over, and then it was just a massive celebration.
Yeah, I bet. Holy cow. That is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy. So from where you were, Jace, I assume you were safe, being like they weren't going to wind you, and you just had to. Okay. So.
Yep, I couldn't move. There was one point when that ram kind of turned on the rock, and I thought, well, I could maybe slide behind him and get a better angle. But my wind was just, it was kind of like whitetail hunting, right? It was just enough wrong for them and just right for me.
Yeah, perfect.
So
right.
it was one of those deals where I didn't want to be any more aggressive than I'd already been. I got to a point where I was within 100 yards of bedded sheep, and now I just had to see what was going to happen from there. Because if I would have pushed it anymore, it would have been game over. They'd have got me. I'd seen it happen too many times. I tried to get super aggressive on a stalk. It just, I was just going to let things unfold from there.
One thing you said earlier, and we didn't hammer out this detail, and I want to hammer it out right now, is basically when you said a small group. So what that means, everybody, is like basically, Jace, you knew right away that gave you an opportunity to potentially have less eyes on you, and I just want everybody to know how important that is.
Oh, 1,000%, man. So important. I made a stalk one day on the ram that I told you I passed. He was with 22 other rams.
Holy cow.
And, it was probably the best stalk I've ever made in my life on any animal to get in that tight. I was 36 36 or 37 yards from those sheep. I just couldn't get an angle on the shooters. And this ram was a shooter. I shouldn't say he wasn't a shooter. He just wasn't what I envisioned in my mind for my Rocky. I mean, he was really heavy based, but he just didn't have much of a curl. I mean, he was a fully legal ram, but he just kind of was almost audadish. He kind of swept out instead of, kind of holding that tightness. But he was broomed way back. I mean, he was a nice ram. He was a nice, respectable ram. But it just, less eyes on anything is better, and especially with sheep. And when you're hunting those larger groups of sheep, it's very tough because they bed every which direction. They have incredible noses. Of course, when you're in the mountains, you've got wind and thermals to deal with and fully understand, and you need to constantly be monitoring and checking that wind. And, noise and things like that is just everything everything's got to be perfect when you got a bow and you got a sheep tag. You have to execute. The stock has to be. You got to find the sheep first. You got to execute the stock, and then if you do get yourself in position, you gotta mentally compartmentalize what's about to happen and make the shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that's well said, and I can't imagine anything, Jace, like being more true. That to me is just a kind of a pinnacle of the mountain for bow hunters, and just listening to you talk about it, just there's so many things to overcome. It's almost amazing that we can fling an arrow and kill one of those things because there's just so much stuff between, up there in the mountains. Like you didn't really even hit on, like, it sounds like you guys even got really lucky with good weather because, there can be storms.
We did to a point.
No. What's that?
Yeah, we did. We did to a point. We were actually waiting out a massive thunderstorm and lightning storm to pass, and about an hour after it passed was when this all started to transpire. But we were just stuck because we were just getting pounded. But no, overall for this hunt, we usually had some form of precipitation in the afternoon at some point. That was always pretty common. The skies would darken, and we'd get a massive rain that just beat on us for a while, or you just get the sprinkles or whatever. But it was the weather for the most part was really good. Winds were more stable than I've ever seen them, probably in the mountains. We always seem to have a pretty consistent 5 to 10 mile an hour breeze, which kept that wind from being so fickle, and just kept it more consistent than I've seen it a lot of times in the mountains hunting other critters. And so, it was from start to finish. It was meant to be, it was the hunt of a lifetime. And from start to finish, what I look back on more than anything is, the effort that everybody put in, no detail was missed, no I or T was left. We dotted the I's, we crossed the T's. Our gear was right. We did everything that we could do before the hunt to make sure that if we did earn that one opportunity, that we would be successful. And just hearing the bottom of that canyon explode when that sheep toppled over with the screams of my buddies who got to watch it all go down through spotting scopes.
Oh, that's cool.
There was probably $100,000 worth of glass on that hill. And, it was just nuts. And then it just was pandemonium from that point. Everybody's screaming and yelling and I'm on the radio and I'm like, are you 100%? I was crying at this point. I was like, are you 100% sure he's down? Because I lost him over the ridge, excuse me, when he toppled. I was sure I saw a right leg go up. I know I saw his back end buckle. But I was like, you're just like, are you in bow hunting? You know how it is. Like, are you 100%? I was like, and I got on the radio. I said, because if you're not and you can't see him dead, then everybody shut up. And my buddy Jason gets on and goes, buddy, I am looking at your ram with his nose facing straight up in the air and bubbles coming out of his side. He is done. We are done. We're headed up the hill. And at that moment, it was just like, I just kind of dropped down and sat. I had to sit down. I couldn't walk down the hill to my ram for about 10 minutes because I would have fallen. And if I'd have fallen, I'd have died. Huh. So, I just sit there for a minute and just prayed. I just gave all the glory to God that it came together, and that the shot was good, the animal expired quickly, and now I've got 7 friends that are going to be up this hill in 45-50 minutes, and we're going to be taking photos and hugging and getting meat off of it and sharing the stories and packing him off the hill, and just everything that comes along after, where it's just like you feel like 100 pounds of weight just left your shoulders, and you can sit there and just in that moment and just enjoy it, just enjoy it, because that's probably not one I'll get again for that animal. I don't have the money to chase them all over the globe, and I probably will be 80 years old when I draw another sheep tag, and if I live that long, and it'll be probably with a rifle at that point. But I was blessed to get to do it when I did. And I wouldn't have changed one thing about that hunt. I don't have any regrets or hindsights or anything. It was the perfect bow hunt.
Yeah. I mean, it's an awesome story, Jason. It's awesome that it just seemed, that hunt really seemed to flow the right way for you, and everything worked out just, the way it should have. And it's nice to hear those stories, that it's okay to hear those stories too. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to talk about a story that you're like, I can't even make this up. It just worked out, perfectly. And it is. It is nice to hear those, because, sometimes all you hear about is all the adversity, and not that you didn't have any, but it's nice to hear that, like, man, if you could write down on pen and paper a awesome, perfect bow hunt, you had it, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and it was. And I think, for anybody that draws their sheep tag, anybody that's going on a sheep hunt is I think you can remove so much of that adversity, right? You can take out so much of that adversity with what you do beforehand, with the preparations that you make leading up to it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yep, for sure. And one thing I wanted to point out too, Jace, is you guys had done enough scouting that you really knew the potential in that area of those rams, and that's why, you weren't in a hurry to say, I'm going to shoot this one or that one, because you knew what the top end was, and you knew that, like, hey, if I get the chance and we're just here enough days, odds are I'm going to take one of the oldest rams here.
And that was the goal. I mean, and that was truly it. I didn't want to kill a sheep to kill a sheep. That was kind of what I kept saying, and what all my buddies kept saying. We were in agreement. It was like, we're not killing a ram to kill a ram. We're here to hunt a mature ram. And I'm not a big guy. I struggle to pass animals a lot of times. I like to let that carbon fly. And, but on this hunt, I knew, like mentally, I just told myself beforehand, like, okay, you cannot go up there and shoot a ram that you're not going to be just super stoked with at the end of the day, because this is it. You've waited 19 years for it. Your wife and your family have, given you 31 days. And over 31 days of time, if you keep putting in that time and you keep working hard, eventually you're going to get your one opportunity, right? You're going to get the shot at the ram, one of these rams that would make you just do a backflip. And that's kind of how I stayed true to that plan, is just telling myself that's how I passed that ram that day. I mean, I never hooked up to my bow. I mean, I knew, because once I hooked up to my bow, autopilot starts and it's time to go to work. And so I just never, I never hooked up on that ram. And I'm glad I didn't, because I probably would have shot him once I would have clipped on and started to, put my hinge on that bow and started to go through the process. But, I wanted a mature representative of the area. I wanted to take a mature animal that was at his prime, and leave the herd good. So it just, that all came together so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't blame you, and I think that's a cool part of the story is, you being able to hold out like that, and as hard as that is sometimes, I mean, that was the right thing, especially for me. I'm like that too, man. I'm like, man, I better not, click that release on, because, sometimes you go blank. It's predator mode. I don't even have a way to explain it sometimes. It's just predator mode.
Yeah.
And
you just go into autopilot, and it's time to start thinking about, getting into your grip and, crawling into that perfect anchor and pushing and pulling and letting the release fire the bow and all the things that goes with whatever shot process anybody goes through, whatever you say or do or how you go about execution. But, you know, I didn't want to start that process. I only wanted to start that process once. You know, that was the goal. Gotcha. Is start the process once and finish. You know, and that's what we kept telling everybody, each other, is like, hey, you know, we got to finish. And I'd shoot, you know, on days, you know, when we get back to camp or whatever, I made sure every day, you know, I stretched it out and checked my tape and, you know, made sure I could execute, have the guys stand right there by me and put pressure on me and, you know, things like that, because I was a bundle of nerves, and you know, I promise you I had sheep fever or whatever you want to call it. It's just, you know, through the countless hours of shooting and going through a process, you know, it just worked out, you know. So it still doesn't feel real, I guess. You know, I've talked to guys that have been on sheep hunts, and I'm like, when is this going to feel real? Like, I still feel for days after that hunt, I felt like I'm going to wake up and it's going to be 4:00 in the morning, and we're going to be making coffee, and it's going to be time to hit the mountain. And you know, it's just like, okay, no, it's real. It happened. It's over. You know, it's done with. And yeah. So I mean, it just, man, what a wonderful experience, and what a special animal.
Yeah, I mean, they're so cool, and I just always, maybe one of my favorite animals in North America, to be honest. I admire big sheep quite a bit. Just everything about them, you know, they're so unique to North America, which is amazing. And just, you know, they live in a rugged place. You just have to respect them so much. And then on top of that, just their attitudes, their beauty, and man, it's just an awesome bow hunting story, man. And, you know, Jace, before I let you go, and I want to know, like, tell us a little bit. I mean, to me, that thing's just a giant ram, but how old was it, and what did he end up scoring out at?
You know, right now they've got him at 8.5 to 9 years old. So definitely ram. Mature. Yeah, 100% mature ram. He's gonna, you know, I haven't had him officially scored yet, but unofficial, he's gonna bump right there around that 171 to 173 mark. So that was, and the goal was 170. I mean, that was kind of our goal. Was we wanted to be right around that 170 mark. We knew that unit. You know, we knew a 180 ram was really, you know, kind of finding a unicorn in that particular unit. And yeah, it just, you know, when you get up there around that 170 mark and you're looking at something with 16-inch bases and holds mass throughout, and, you know, is broomed back a little bit and just has that mature grayish coat. I mean, that's what you're looking for in a sheep. You know, you want that when you're done. You want that type of sheep. So, you know, if you draw that tag wherever you go in the world, and you hunt these things, you know what you want going into time, because there's a significant difference. You know, we found a deadhead up there, we found a deadhead lion kill. And that ram was, Connor scored him at like 160, you know, and the difference between that ram and my ram was just so significant. Like, I held that 160 in my hand. I held the caps, and I was like, gosh, this would be more than enough for me. This is big. And then, you know, then you see that 10 inches, which is mostly mass. You look at it and you go, wow, this is big difference. This is a pretty special sheep, you know. So
amazing.
Yeah, we're confident he was one of the top 3 biggest sheep, in that unit. And then when we got him down to the division office, you know, that was kind of the consensus from the people that had flown and things like that. So we were really happy. We were just really, really happy to have him. And yeah, I mean, I just, before this conference call, I was just on the phone with the taxidermist finding out what we're going to do with him. So
awesome.
Getting that all dialed and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a beautiful process from start to finish, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, congrats, Jace. I mean, it was an amazing ram, and hopefully this podcast does some justice to what the type of animal you killed, and just an awesome bow hunt. And all I gotta know, Jace, is like, what's next? What do we do after you kill a ram like that?
Oh, I want to go hunt sheep again. No, I got antelope coming up here. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna hunt right around home here. But my September is hard for me now. My September and October are really hard. for me now. I've had to cut back on things just because my daughter's a freshman. She starts for our varsity volleyball team, and my son is the varsity quarterback as a sophomore for our football team here, and I help with the football team. And so, like, we have a scrimmage this afternoon, and, you know, getting to watch my kids experience success and getting to help coach and just being able to be around these kids and see them work to achieve something. And that's really, as a coach, all I can bring to the table to them as far as football-wise, because I wasn't a great football player. My son's a remarkable football player. I'll brag on him a little bit. But what I can bring to that, what I try to bring is energy, and I just try to bring that, hey, find a way to win. You know, it doesn't matter. I don't care what we've got going on. You know, get grit and find a way to get it done. And just being around those boys, they push me to be better. I like to think I push them to be better. And so, you know, that's kind of my September, you know, elk plans and things like that. I was fortunate last year. I did the same thing, and I slopped out and killed a nice drop tine bull here very close to the house in this Plains unit, which is another story that's crazy. But I've got some elk found that I'm going to hunt here close to home, but, you know, I just refuse to miss a game. And with my daughter now having 2 games a week, you know, it's just going to put some limited crunch on it. But I'll hunt antelope and I'll hunt elk. And then, you know, towards the end of October, I'll get real serious with the whitetails. I got, you know, some good tags whitetail-wise, and that's one creature that's gotten in my blood. They're in my blood. And so that's most of my plan. You know, right now I'm just enjoying the fact that, you know, that the sheep gun is complete, and I'm missing it, but I'm relieved, and excited about other hunts coming up too, for sure.
Well, it sounds like you're busy, Jace, and I appreciate the time, and I love the fact that, you know, I'm with you. Like, I have my son actually just this coming week is his birthday, and he'll be a freshman in high school, and he's a very good swimmer, and just all of that is kind of consumes me now. I mean, that
sure.
Everything about the hunting it's the same but different, you know what I mean? And it's like, if I'm not focused on hunting, I'm focused on him and what he's doing, and I love it just the same. And I love to see him work and him have success and be who he is, and it's just awesome. But I'm always excited to see and hear from you, Jace. I know that you'll probably be knocking a few more animals down, so hopefully we can get back together. And obviously, you know my affection for whitetail, so if you want to get back together,
buddy,
let me know, man.
We'll hook up.
I'd love to do that.
We'll hook up and talk again. I always appreciate you letting me be on, and I appreciate the friendship and respect what you do very much. Love how you go about things, and I'll look forward to talking again on another podcast with you. But I know we'll text and talk before that. So man, I appreciate you taking the time to ask me to be on. It's always an honor. Yeah,
absolutely. Jace, any spot you want people to go to look up what you're doing or what you're currently working on?
Yeah, just, you know, Instagram's probably my biggest platform for me. I guess it's not even a platform. I don't push. I try not to push things too much. It's just my first name, JACE _ and then my entire last name, which is BAUSERMAN. That's my Instagram handle, at Jace _ Bauserman. And then, you know, just Field and Stream, Outdoor Life, Bow Hunter, you know, those are places you can find me on, you know, wherever. And I do tons of online articles these days, probably 80-20 print now. Do so much online stuff, instructional videos, things like that. So, you know, you can just jump on the web and Google me, and got a couple books out on Amazon. You can just type in Jace Bauserman, the books come up, you know. So, yeah, I just try to keep going, man. Keep on keeping on, and just enjoy the ride, because you know, we're blessed to get to do it, and we'll keep on going until we can't go no more.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well said. Well, thanks, Jace, and like I said, can't wait to do it again, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thanks, buddy. Talk soon.
All right, and we'll see you guys again next week.